Recent natural disasters in the world 2021. Climate change report a code red for humanity, UN warns. What is happening? Watch this video until the end. Earth's climate is getting so hot that temperatures in about a decade will probably blow past a level of warming that world leaders have sought to prevent, according to a report released Monday that the United Nations calls a code red for humanity. It's just guaranteed that it's going to get worse, said report co-author Linda Mearns, a senior climate scientist at the U.S. National Center for ATM. But scientists also eased back a bit on the likelihood of the absolute worst climate catastrophes. The Authoritative Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, report, which calls climate change clearly human-caused and unequivocal, makes more precise and warmer forecasts for the 21st century than it did last time it was issued in 2013. World leaders agreed then to try to limit warming to 1.5°C since the late 19th century because problems mount quickly after that. The limit is only a few tenths of a degree hotter than now because the world has already warmed nearly 1.1°C in the past century and a half. Under each scenario, the report said, the world will cross the 1.5°C warming mark in the 2030s, earlier than some past predictions. Warming has ramped up in recent years, data shows. In 3 scenarios, the world will also likely exceed 2°C over pre-industrial times, the other, less stringent Paris goal, with far worse heat waves, droughts and flood-inducing downpours and less deep reductions in carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gas emissions occur in the coming decades, the report said. This report tells us that recent changes in the climate are widespread, rapid and intensifying, unprecedented in thousands of years, said IPCC Vice Chair Co Barrett, Senior Climate Advisor for the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. The changes we experience will increase with further warming. The 3,000-plus page report from 234 scientists said warming is already accelerating sea level rise, shrinking ice and worsening extremes such as heat waves, droughts, floods and storms. Tropical cyclones are getting stronger and wetter, while Arctic sea ice is dwindling in the summer and permafrost is thawing. All of these trends will get worse. For example, the kind of heat wave that used to happen only once every 50 years now happens once a decade, and if the world warms another degree, it will happen twice every 7 years. As the planet warms, places will get hit more not just by extreme weather but by multiple climate disasters that occur simultaneously. That's like what's now happening in the western U.S., where heat waves, drought and wildfires compound the damage. Some harm from climate change, dwindling ice sheets, rising sea levels and changes in the oceans as they lose oxygen and become more acidic, are irreversible for centuries to millennia. The world is locked into 15 to 30 centimeters of sea level rise by mid-century, said report co-author Bob Kopp of Rutgers University. Nearly all of the warming that has happened on Earth can be blamed on emissions of heat-trapping gases such as carbon dioxide and methane. At most, natural forces like the sun or simple randomness can explain 1 or 2/10 of a degree of warming. The report described 5 different future scenarios based on how much the world reduces carbon emissions. They are, a future with incredibly large and quick pollution cuts, another with intense pollution cuts but not quite as massive, a scenario with moderate emissions, a 4th scenario where current plans to make small pollution reductions continue, and a 5th possible future involving continued increases in carbon pollution. In 5 previous reports, the world was on that final hottest path, often nicknamed business as usual. But this time, the world is somewhere between the moderate emissions path and the small pollution reduction scenario because of progress to curb climate change, said report co-author Claudia Tebaldi, a scientist at the U.S. Pacific Northwest National Lab. In a way, the world can stay at the 1.5 degree threshold with extreme and quick emission cuts, but even then, warming would hit 1.5 degrees in a decade, rise a tad and then come back down, said co-author Mazia Rojas Carrada, director of the Center for Climate and Resilience Research in Chile. While calling the report a code red for humanity, United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres kept a sliver of hope that world leaders could still somehow prevent 1.5 degrees of warming, which he said is perilously close. Anything we can do to limit, to slow down, is going to pay off, Ms. Tebaldi said. And if we cannot get to 1.5, it's probably going to be painful, but it's better not to give up. In the report's worst-case scenario, the world could be around 3.3 C hotter than now by the end of the century. But that scenario looks increasingly unlikely, said report co-author and climate scientist Zeke Hausfather, climate change director of the Breakthrough Institute. We are a lot less likely to get lucky and end up with less warming than we thought. We won't be able to meet Paris Agreement goals without rapid near-term reductions in our emissions, Mr. Hausfather said. At the same time, the odds of ending up in a much worse place than we expected if we do reduce our emissions are notably lower. The report said ultra-catastrophic disasters, commonly called tipping points, like ice sheet collapses and the abrupt slowdown of ocean currents are low likelihood but cannot be ruled out. The much-talked-about shutdown of Atlantic Ocean currents, which would trigger massive weather shifts, is something that's unlikely to happen in this century, Mr. Kopp said. The report provides a strong sense of urgency to do even more, said Jane Lubchenco, the White House Deputy Science Advisor. In a new move, scientists emphasized how cutting airborne levels of methane, a powerful but short-lived gas that has soared to record levels, could help curb short-term warming. More than 100 countries have made informal pledges to achieve net zero human-caused carbon dioxide emissions sometime around mid-century, which will be a key part of climate negotiations this fall in Scotland. The report said those commitments are essential. It is still possible to forestall many of the direct impacts. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe our channel Secret Studio Creations. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.